electro here. I've had a few questions about the mechanism on my coil winder, so I thought I'd do a quick video to explain how it works in general, especially the feeding mechanism for the wire. I'll show you the gear mechanism first. That's the main handle there, which is the crank handle. Now there's a gear here. This gear you can turn around, and well, as you can see, it's geared by that gear to the top shaft, which goes along, which holds the bobbin where you wind. Also off this shaft is a screw mechanism, which is for the turn counter. That's by screws on the back, as you can see there. And as the shafts turn, that shows you the amount of windings that it performs. Apart from that, on the other side of this shaft, which if you disconnect that, this shaft does nothing, it just turns. But on the other side there you see this big wheel. Now the significance of that wheel, hang on a sec, I'll just put all this back together. That there. That there. Now I'll turn it over. Now the significance of this wheel here is, you can see in there's another wheel. That wheel is at 90 degrees to both this wheel here and that wheel there. Now what that does is transfer movement from this wheel through that wheel there to this wheel, which is attached to the shaft, which has the feeding mechanism on it. Now it's also attached on a threaded rod, more or less, with a threaded casting there, which moves that wheel up and down. You can see that'll bring it down and that'll bring it up. But the consequence of that is that it touches this wheel at a different diameter. So as this wheel shifts up and down, it contacts this wheel here on the inside at a different diameter. Now that'll give it a changing turn ratio from the main shaft when you vary that. That's also coincides with a gauge measurement there, but that's a load of crap. It's not accurate. And it also says that it'll go up to 46 gauge. It won't. I've wound a coil with 44 gauge, which is 0.05 millimeters. It's really thin wire. But what I had to do was, pardon me while I get comfortable, disregard the feeding mechanism altogether and use this. What this is from this is what you tie a fishing fly with. So I've just fed the 0.05 wire down through that, and I manually fed it onto the transformer. It was the only way I can stop the wire from breaking, because this mechanism is just, for wire that fine, this is just too rough. It won't do it. So anyway, to cut a long story short, getting back to this. Now that, I'll take it off and show you what this is, this mechanism here. This is just like a washer. This is like a copper spring, sort of places pressure on the washer, and a lockable nut. Now that shaft here goes along to the feeding mechanism. And this is quite ingenious here how it works. I'll have to put this back together to show you, but what the significance of this is here is how you disengage the feeding mechanism itself. Hang on, I'll just show you if I get it all together. Now, you can see down there that the wheel touches on that wheel. I'll just loosen it off a bit. But it doesn't touch on that wheel. I'll just pull it off a bit more there. So now, when you turn this, only the bobbin will turn and the feeding mechanism is disconnected. If you want to engage it, you tighten this, which puts pressure on this wheel here, which forces contact on there with that small inner wheel. So now, when you turn the shaft, the inside wheel turns the outside wheel, which gets transferred along to these movements here. Now, this mechanism here is very interesting as well, the way they've done this. What is on these, actually they've given me a couple of spares, so I'll show you. The machine comes with a couple of spare O-rings and a couple of spare, hang on a sec, oops, sorry about that, yeah, these are like half circles that have been threaded, and what this thread coincides with is that thread there, that fits there. So when this is in contact with this, this will run along this bar as the thread turns either that way or this way. Now, see this mechanism here? There's also a couple of spare O-rings there for the wheel in the centre. But getting back to this mechanism. Now, how this works, it's basically a sliding mechanism on here with a tensioner, spring mounted tensioner, which doesn't really work all that well, but I hook it up with rubber bands, or basically just to keep a bit of tension on it, because from the factory it's pretty crappy. But the interesting bit is the mechanism here. It's kind of hard to get a picture of it so you guys can see it now. It's got a firm basket basically that runs along the top shaft. It'll run along it. As you can see, there's the shaft runs through it, and these are stops. These are adjustable. You can have them where you want the carriage to turn back. It's got a separate carriage on the bottom, which is spring loaded through this part in the middle here. Now you can see over there it flicks over that side of that peak or this side of the peak. The effect that has is it either pushes this side down so this side's in contact with the thread and that side lifts up, which moves the tray in one direction, and then when it gets to the other side, this is where I'll need to operate the machine to show you how the clicking mechanism works. You can see that it's pushing it across, and it's just pushed it across, and now it's taken the weight off that piece there and transferred it onto that piece there, so now it winds and it moves this way. So as it moves there now, the pin here will start pushing this mechanism across, which makes it flick over the other side of the triangle peak down there, like so. And that transfers the weight over to the other side of the lower bar, which engages the thread on the other side, which reverses the movement of the table, if you get my drift. So it seems to work quite effective for larger diameter wires, but for anything say below 0.25 millimeters, you'd have to revert to manual methods for feeding the wire onto it. The other handy feature of this machine is the overrun prevention sort of system that they've made for the. This is where you hold your main spool. The wiring, it draws it off along here and off to the machine. Now, what this has is a built-in brake onto it. It's spring-loaded there. That's just there. Now, as the wire comes off the spool, it goes around this roller and to the machine. When you start winding the machine, it pulls this down because it's only a fairly weak spring holding this, and that releases sort of like a brake that's on that. Now, once that brake is down, this shaft turns easy, which holds the shaft, the spool. Once the spool overruns and the pressure is taken off that roller, it'll raise back up, and when it raises back up, the brake is placed on there so it stops the spool from turning. It's quite an effective manual overrun system. It doesn't need adjustment ever, and it just works. So if anyone's building their own, I'd copy that. So that's how it's made. It's just the swings off there. Yep, so anyway, hope this helps anybody out who's building their own machine. They can understand more on how this mechanism works. The diameters of these two also seem slightly different. This one is slightly bigger than that one. I don't have a ruler to measure them, but if anybody needs the measurement, I suppose I can get them for them. But yeah, in a nutshell, that's it. So post your comments. Bye.